Shalom family, and welcome to Into All Truth. Welcome back. I give all praise and glory and honor to the Most High Yahweh. I pray that this word blesses the hearers. I pray that the eyes of your understanding be enlightened, that you be given a spirit of wisdom, revelation, and knowledge to know what is the hope of your calling, what is the inheritance of the assembly in Israel, and what are the riches of Yah's glory in Yeshua HaMashiach. Today I'm continuing with my series on Yeshua of the Bereans, Yeshua in the Old Testament. And I'm going to just talk about some of the early patriarchs in this episode. And once again, it's called Yeshua of the Bereans because in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, Acts 17:11 says, of the Bereans, those were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. So what this means is that they were searching the Old Testament, the Tanakh, the Torah and the prophets, because there was no New Testament around. It was in the process of being written in Hebrew by the Hebrew only speaking apostles. So, of course, Paul spoke Greek and so on, but the rest of them did not. So let's get into this study. There are many among the Hebrews who do not believe that Yeshua is throughout Old Testament scripture. And they say that the Brit Hadashah is not script. But is this true? I mean, what does the word say? What does the Tanakh say? Yah says, behold, I come as the whirlwind. I come in the whirlwind. Now, if we look at the shape of a whirlwind, it is actually a spiral. And when we look at scripture, we see repeating themes, repeating archetypes, repeating stories. Now, none of this is fictional. This is all actual truth. But we see the trials of Abraham and his sons and his descendants being repeated over and over again with larger and larger ramifications over time and with prophecy as well. So this is how we must look at the Brit Hadashah and the Tanakh. This spiral, this whirlwind of Yah, is the unfolding of his redemption of Yashrael and all the peoples of the earth, whosoever shall believe on him, the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah. So essentially, when we look at the script, we can see it as something like a clock winding up. And now in our initial study of Bereshit, the scriptures showed us that Yeshua said, behold, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. And we already reviewed the scriptures that talk about Yah and his character. And the very first book of the script, Bereshit, actually speaking of the coming of Yeshua. And so in Isaiah 46:10 it says, I am Yah, there is no other, declaring the end from the beginning. So Yeshua is declared in the beginning and all the way through to the end. And we know from Bereshit, Genesis, the translation of Bereshit means the Son of Yah is destroyed by his own hand on the cross to establish the covenant. And that's in Hebrew, the Hebrew language as translated. We also learn that no man can see Yah and live, according to Exodus 33:20, that only the Son of Man has seen him and declares him. So what is one of the first manifestations or appearances of our high priest to Abraham as a type in scripture? So what Yeshua is the high priest for all of us, the high priest in the heavens, who ministers unto Yah and intercedes for us. So where is his first appearance in the scripture? When we look at Genesis 14, Abraham is dwelling on the plains of Mamre with his adopted son, his brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his name is Lot. And according to Genesis 14:12, a bunch of bandits, Amorites, took Lot and all of his goods and departed. And there came one that escaped from among Lot's men and told Abram, the Hebrew, for he dwelt on the plain of Mamre, the Amorite brother of Eshcol and the brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abraham. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto what was later known as the land of Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left of Damascus. So it is in the night, in the darkness of night, that this battle takes place, okay? In a time when great darkness falls. And he brought back all the goods, and also again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him, at the valley of Seah, which is Kingsdale. And Melchizedek, king of Shalom, king of peace, brought forth bread and wine. And he was the priest of the Most High Yah. So suddenly, we have this appearance of this priest. Some speculate he was Shem, but there's actually no information on him at all. Yet we know he brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Yah. Now we also know that Yeshua HaMashiach is the bread of life, and his blood is considered to be wine. So now Melchizedek's name means my king is righteousness, because he was said to be the king of Shalom. Now we know that Jerusalem is the land of peace. And when we look at, this is the Hebrew translation of his name, we see the Mem, the Lamed, the Kaf, which is the open-handed palm, which can also be the menorah. The Lamed obviously is the staff of Yah. The Mem is like the water flowing, and we know that the waters above are what separate us from the heavens. We also see the hand of Yah, the Yod, and the second to last letter is the Dalet, the door to heaven. And then the final letter that we see here is the kind of the Kaf, which is like the rising sun. So waters of heaven, Lamed, staff, shepherd, open-handed, hand of Yah, to the door of heaven, and the rising sun. Okay, that's who Melchizedek is, and he is the Prince of Peace. And we hear many times Yeshua is called the Prince of Peace. So what does he do? He blesses Abraham. And he says, blessed be Abraham of the Most High Yah, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High Yah, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. So Melchizedek is given 1/10, a tithe of all, which is usually what the Levitical priests are given according to the law. So he again is affirmed here as a priest. Now, just to go over some of the repeating patterns here, was Lot not the adopted son of Abraham? Because Abraham's brother was dead, was not around, and Abraham had to adopt Lot. Was Lot not redeemed by Abraham? out of darkness? Does a priest not carry bread and wine for offerings, for sacrifices? Yeshua is the Word made flesh, and his blood is shed, the blood that washes away sin. Now, why was Lot carried away captive? Where was Lot dwelling? He was dwelling in Sodom, in the land of sin. So does Abraham not redeem his brother? Does he not redeem his brother's wife? Does he not redeem even their servants, their companions, their multitude? And do they not come out of this redemption with much substance? Yes. So you can see that this is a type for the redemption of Israel at the end of times, and the redemption of Israel in Yeshua HaMashiach. The redemption of the brother and the son and the adopted son, and the redemption of the servants, the companions, under the darkness of the night of sin. So Abraham's portion ultimately is the treasure of the enemy and the redeemed. He redeemed his brother, his brother's wives, their people, their servants, and this is, again, a picture of the redemption of Israel. And Melchizedek is given a tenth of the treasure. And as I said, that's what the Levitical priests do. So this is a picture even of the end times, the redemption of Israel, and returning to the high priest, Yeshua HaMashiach, who takes, as the high priest, his offering from his son Abraham. So now when we look at this, at Hebrews 7 for confirmation, we read, "For this Melchizedek, king of Shalom, prince of priests, priest of the Most High, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation, king of righteousness, and after that also king of peace, which is king of Shalom, which is king of peace. He was without a father, without a mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life." So we never know when Melchizedek dies. We don't know who his mother or father is. "But made like unto the Son of Yah, he abideth as a priest continually." Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave a tenth of the spoils. And verily they that are of the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law that is of their brethren, though they come out of the loins of Abraham, but whose descent is not counted from them, received tithes of Abraham, and blessed him that had promises. Okay, so the high priests stand in for the eldest son, for the son of Yah. For Israel, Yah says, is my firstborn son. So here we have a complete picture of the redemption of Israel, both from Exodus and in Yeshua, and finally at the end of times. And so here's just another picture that I want to relate to you. Of course, I just said, Israel is my firstborn son, is what Yah says in Exodus 22 to 23. And I just repeated the fact that Abraham dwelt in the plain of Mamre, in other words, the bosom of the land. Then Abraham removed his tent and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Most High. And who dwells in the bosom of the Father? So Abraham is the firstborn son, but Yeshua HaMashiach is also the firstborn son. So when we read John 1:18, it says, "No man hath seen Yahweh at any time, except the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father. He hath declared him." So just as Abraham is dwelling in the plains of Mamre, so the Son dwells in the bosom of the Father. And this is where Melchizedek meets with Abraham, in the plains of Mamre, to receive this tithe, this offering, and to bless Abraham. What shall I do since I am childless? This is the question that Abraham asks of Yah, because Yah has promised great things of him, yet he has no child. And so what Yah does in Genesis 15:4 is he promises him that he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Most High, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Most High that brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Yahweh, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and he divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another. But the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abraham drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. So again, we see a time of great darkness falling upon Abraham and his descendants here, just like in the darkness when he had to rescue Lot. So again, this is the spiral, the repeating pattern. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve I will judge, and afterward they will come out with great substance. They will come out with great substance. So just as in the rescue of the son, the adopted son, Lot, by Abraham in a time of great darkness, they came out with much substance. Here it's repeated again. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, and thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. So here we have a picture of a smoking furnace and a burning lamp, ratifying, securing this covenant. Now, as we all know, when we study this scripture, Abraham is put into a deep sleep, while Yah secures the covenant. So normally, as we know in the past, when people would do a covenant in that time, they would cut an animal in half, and they would walk between the two pieces of the animal and they would say, May this happen to me if I don't keep my word. So in this case, and the two men would agree, and they would agree to the covenant, and the two of them would walk through between the bloodied pieces of the animal. But in this case, Abraham is put to sleep, and Yahweh sends a smoking furnace, a burning lamp, to pass between those two pieces. So he alone is securing this covenant in blood that has come from the animals, the blood of the animals. So when we look at the word burning lamp, it's actually in Hebrew, it's the lapid. And so this brings us to the question, when we're talking about a flame of fire, an aish, even when we go back to Bereshit and we look at the word aish, which is in the middle of Bereshit, this is the consuming destructive fire that destroys Yeshua to redeem man. So this is the aish, the fire that is going between these two pieces of an animal. So can we then determine that Yeshua is a furnace or a lamp of fire. Well, Yeshua says, I am the light of the world in John 8:12. Psalms 12:6 also says, the words of the Most High Yah are pure words as silver tried in a furnace on the earth, refined 7 times. And where else do we see a furnace of fire? In Daniel 3 with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And this is where they remark to Nebuchadnezzar that their God is able to deliver us out of the fiery furnace. So this is a hand of deliverance out of the fiery furnace. In Revelation also, it discusses the Son of Man, and it says his feet were like burnished brass when it has been made to glow in a furnace. Now ask yourself, did Yashua not go into the fiery depths of hell to defeat death as a refiner? And are we not called to take this same fire walk also? Because when we look at Isaiah 43, 1 through 2, it says, but thus saith Yahweh that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers they shall not overflow thee. And when thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. So again, we see this picture of somebody who goes into a furnace, somebody who is a furnace, and now is there a picture of him again as the light, as the lamp? Well, Psalm 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And so we saw the lamp going through between the two beasts, the two dead animals of the covenant, as a burning flame. And we hear in John 1:14, it says, the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory and the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So we know that the word was made flesh, and the word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Just another cultural cue as to the Hebrews, Lewis Latimer invented the light. And curiously enough, he invented the filament of the light, but somehow the light and the light bulb looks like a dude with an afro. Are there other pictures of Yeshua being a torch or lamp or burning flame? Well, we already talked about the calf. We already talked about the menorah. There's the menorah is mentioned. And when we see the image of the calf, we see a menorah. And the menorah has on either side of it 6 lights, and at the center is the light Yeshua. But also, here's another picture. In the fire on the mount in Exodus 3, 1 through 4, Moses sees a burning bush that is not consumed. Now, a burning bush could be considered to be a torch or a light or a sign. So Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and held the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Yah, even to Horeb. So Horeb is Mount Sinai. And the angel of Yahweh, so here's another picture of an angel appearing, appeared unto him in a flame. So the angel of Yah appeared in a flame out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire. And the bush, now the bush is called Sinai, and the mountain is called Sinai, which also means sign. And the bush, like a torch, was not consumed. So, is this a sign of fire for salvation and covenant with the seed? Yes, it is. And so then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And then Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see. And so Yah called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses. And he said, here am I. So the burning bush symbolizes the angel of Yah. But where do we see this angel of Yah first? And how does it relate to Yeshua? In our previous video, we already discussed the Aleph and the Bet. And remember, we read from right to left. So the Aleph is first and the Bet is second. So when we go into the book of Genesis 18, we have a picture of Abraham sitting at the door of the tent. So just in the same way that Yahuwah guards the door to the tent, Yahuwah sits over the circle of the earth and guards the door to the earth. So we have this picture in Genesis 18 of Abraham sitting at the door to his tent in the heat of the day. Genesis 18. Again, the Most High appeared unto him in the plain of Mamre as he, Abraham, sat in his door to the tent about the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself down to the ground. Now, if we look at these 2 verses in Genesis 18, it's almost as though it says the Most High appeared to him in the plain as Abraham sat at his tent door about the heat of the day. So you imagine this rippling heat on the plain, and then you see Yahuwah, the Most High, appear to him. Okay? And so suddenly he lifts up his eyes and look, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And he saw them, and he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself down to the ground. And how do we know that this particular angel, the angel of Yah, is different from all angels? Well, after he bows himself to the ground, he says, Yahuwah, if I have found favor in thy sight, go not, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will bring a morsel of bread, that you may comfort your hearts. Afterwards ye shall go on your ways, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, do even as thou hast said. Then Abraham made haste into the tent unto Sarah, and said, make ready at once 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran to the beasts, and took a tender and good calf, and he gave it to the servant, who hastened to make it ready. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set before them, and stood himself by them under the tree, and they did eat. So then they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he answered, behold, she is in the tent. And he said, I will certainly come again to thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife will have a son. And Sarah heard in the tent door, which was behind him. So we have this whole incident of Sarah laughing and so on. Anyway, skipping down, shall anything be too hard for the Most High? At the time appointed, the moed, the appointed time, shall I return unto thee, even according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Skipping down some more, and afterwards the men did rise up from thence, and looked towards Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on their way. And now Yah says to himself, shall I hide from Abraham the thing which I do, seeing Abraham shall indeed be a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him, that he will command his sons and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Most High to do righteousness and judgment, that the Most High bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken unto him. Then the Most High said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is exceedingly grievous. You can check the scripture yourself. What happens here is that Abraham and Yah have this conversation about trying to save a remnant from among those in Sodom and Gomorrah, namely the number of the offspring of Lot and their partners, their marriage partners. And so ultimately Yah says, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Most High went his way as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham. And Abraham returned to his place. Now we skip down to 19. Now the angels are in Sodom and Gomorrah. And it says, now 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was waiting at the gate of Sodom. And so what we see here is that it says again in Genesis 19:1, now 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate. And when Lot saw them, he arose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Now, is it permissible to bow down and worship an angel? Well, let's take a look at Revelation chapter 19, John's testimony of going up into the heavens and being guided by an angel. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yeshua. And worship God, for the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. Now, there are many instances, even after this, where people bow before angels. But in Revelation at this point, John has been transformed back into a son of Yah. And so in his death and resurrection, John will become like the angels, like the sons of Yah, because he has the witness and testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach. But in this particular situation, the difference is that when we see these 3 angels, there are 2 angels flanking on either side of 1 angel. And it's a similar picture to what we see when we see the 2 cherubim over the mercy seat of Yah, or when we see the 2 witnesses, Elijah and Moshe, on either side of Yeshua HaMashiach, like 2 cherubim guarding over and flanking the mercy seat, the spirit of Yah, or Yeshua himself, who once again is the light of the world. So do 2 cherubim not cover the presence of Yah? Do 2 angels not accompany the angel of Yah in this case? Yes. So is there another encounter among the patriarchs with the angel of Yah? Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that Yah did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, behold, here I am. And he said, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon the mountains which I tell thee of. And Abraham rose up very early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which Yah had told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, abide here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. So there we have a picture of the wood, the tree, the cross, which we've seen, the wood on the doorposts in Egypt. And here the wood, just like the cross that Yeshua dies on, or the tree that Yeshua dies on, is symbolizing the tree, the wood for the burnt offering. So it is strapped onto the back of Isaac, son of Abraham. And he takes a torch of fire in his hand and a knife. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, My father, he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, Yah will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So went they, both of them, together. And they came to the place which Yah had told them of. And Abraham built an altar there. And he laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and lay him on the altar upon the wood. So here is a picture, again, of Isaac being laid on the tree that is a cross, but also upon the rock that is the altar, as a burnt offering, a burnt sacrifice. So he is laid out on the altar and on the wood to become a sacrifice. And just as Yeshua was, this is a willing sacrifice. Isaac understands that he must lay himself on the altar, and so he allows himself to be bound. He goes willingly to be sacrificed. So this is a type of Yeshua, and this is the high priest, or Yah, offering his son for the sin of the world. And so his son is his servant. So these types can be seen in Moshe and Joshua. And this type here is seen in Abraham and Isaac, the father and the son, the high priest and the servant, or the inheritor of the place of high priest. Now, here, Abraham is willing to sacrifice his son, and very likely among the Chaldeans, human sacrifice was very common, which he had come out of. But when we look at Jasher and Jubilees, we understand that Abraham was prophesied to be saved, and he was saved many times from destruction, from being a human sacrifice, both by his own father's hand. So it was already his father saved the son, and by the hand of Yah. So there was a deep-seated faith that Abraham already had in this process, because he had been saved by Yah himself already. And so Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Most High called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon that lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest Yah, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And of course, this is an echo of Israel is my firstborn son. And of course, in the future, Israel will be scattered to the four corners of the earth to bleed and die and be sacrificed unto the nations because of sin, but also used of Yah for good as a human sacrifice to bless the Gentiles. So, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, and behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, the true pronunciation is Yahuwah Yarah, which that is to say, Yahuwah provides. And as this word says right here, in the mount of the Most High it shall be seen. So here is the light and the fire of the offering and the ram. The Father offering the Son as a model to the generations, all here, and to the second-born son. Israel is my firstborn son, and then Yeshua is the second-born son. So this is all to a witness to that. And next it says here, and the angel of the Most High called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself I have sworn, saith the Most High, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And you'll notice here the order of the presence of Yah in this, because at first he speaks to Abraham through an audible voice. Then once Isaac has placed himself on the altar, now Yah calls down from heaven and speaks audibly to Abraham, so even Isaac can hear. And then finally, the angel of Yah manifests himself in the presence of Abraham and Isaac as an actual ram. And so once Isaac laid himself down in submission to his father, who was submitting to the father, both of them, that enabled the manifest presence of Yeshua HaMashiach in the form of the Lamb of Yah, the Ram. And so here we see the death of the firstborn son. Unless a seed die to himself, it shall not bear fruit. And so with the death of the ram that followed the death, or the willingness to lay down one's life for Yah, follows the multiplying of seed. So the seed decides to die to itself, and then the seed is consequently multiplied as the stars of heaven. So where else do we see the angel of Yah again among the patriarchs? Because this is the angel of Yah showing himself both to Isaac and Abraham. So this is Isaac's first sighting and experience with the angel of Yah, just as Abraham had his experience with the angel of Yah. So who are the next patriarchs to see the angel of Yah? After Isaac comes Jacob, and of course we know the whole story of Jacob and Esau and so on. And Jacob then goes to live with Rebekah's brother Laban, who basically enslaves him and has him working. And he is essentially put into a place, yes, where he must lay down his life. And then he can finally rise up and escape with his wives, with the woman, and his seed. So what happens, just as when Abraham rescued Lot out of darkness, in the darkness of night, and just when Abraham went into a deep sleep while Yah ratified, sealed the covenant in blood with the light of Yeshua HaMashiach, the light lantern, so now Jacob must rise up in the night, take his 2 wives, his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and pass over the ford Labbok. So he has to pass out of the land of Laban, Lebanon. And he took them and he sent them over the brook, and sent them over that he had. And so he sends his children and his wives and his servants ahead of him because he fears Esau. And from the back, he is coming toward Esau. Now his wives and his seed and his servants have all passed over the waters of the brook, but he has not yet passed over. He takes a break that night, and he is left alone. And I imagine that he is praying, okay, because he is now at the mercy of Esau, and all that he has is his seed, his offspring, all of his possessions. And so in verse 24 here it says, Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled with a man with him until the breaking of day. So here again is the picture of an angel appearing to Jacob in his greatest time of trial and trouble. He has worked off his debt with Laban. He has produced his seed, all 11 of his 12 sons. He has one yet to be produced, Benjamin. The one son who will be born in freedom. But before that can happen, he must wrestle with this angel of Yah. And this is very interesting because not only is Isaac born in freedom when both Sarah and the servants of Abraham are all detached from Abraham, does Abraham go up to the mountain to then sacrifice Isaac. So this is the son who is born after the trials in Egypt and the trials of the Chaldeans, and he is born in liberty. And this is a picture of a man working out his salvation, wrestling with Yah, in the same way that Israel, after walking contrary to Yah, Yah walks contrary to Israel, and then Israel is redeemed. So it is through the buffeting and the blows that the righteousness is brought forth, through the wrestling with the angel of Yah. And this is the literal appearance of the angel of Yah, because before that, when we look at Jacob, he doesn't have a physical appearance and encounter with Yah, with the angel of the Lord. And we know, of course, as I showed you at the beginning, no one can see Yah and live. And this is said all throughout Scripture. So we know this isn't actually Yah that he's wrestling with, but Yah in the form of an angel, and Yah, it says in this particular case, there wrestled a man with him. So he is wrestling with the person, Yeshua HaMashiach, who will eventually come down to live in the form of a man. So just as Isaac, rather than just having the appearance of an angel of Yah, then had the actual appearance of the ram. And now the angel of Yah is appearing to Jacob in the form of a man. So you can see the manifest presence of Yashua has become closer to that of his presence when he comes to save. It is more material and relatable into the form of a man. And so the word says here that Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him again until the breaking of day. Now when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So no matter the pain and the hip out of joint, he would not let go of Yah. And so he said to him, "What is your name?" And Jacob said, "Jacob." And the man, the angel of Yah, said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Yashrael, for you have struggled with the Most High and with men and have prevailed." So this scripture confirms not only is this the Most High Yah in the form of an angel, but the Most High Yah in the form of a man. And Jacob asked, saying, Tell me your name, I pray. And he said, Why is that you ask me my name? And he blessed him there. This is a really curious scripture. I've wondered about this for a very long time. And so, well, when we look at the word name in Hebrew is actually Shem. Shem means name, but there are many deeper meanings that we can attach to Shem, because Shem also means the name of renown, fame, famous name, named with infamous, reputation of fame, glory, the name as in the designation of Yah, or a memorial or a monument. Okay, and we look more at Strong's info on this. It says a primitive word through the idea of definite and conspicuous position, compare, an appellation or mark or memorial of individuality, implication of honor, authority, character. And notice how they pronounce it, shame, right? And of course, this is coming, from Gentile translations in terms of pronunciation. So shame is something you need to be ashamed of. And what is Israel? Both a sign and a wonder, both a cursing and a sign of blessing. So either Shem, which is the son of Noah and the line that's been set apart, or a shame, a cursing. And what else does it say here? Denoting a sign, singam, through kindred to its root. Sign, stigma, mark, by which anyone is marked. But the most interesting part of this to me is that Shem is the progenitor of Israel. And what does Yah say about Israel? Israel is my firstborn son. So he says, why do you ask my name? I'm the name, I'm Shem. Why do you ask my Shem? Why do you ask? I am Shem. I am the firstborn son. So he immediately identifies himself there as Yeshua. Israel is my firstborn son. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. Just as he crossed over Penuel, the sun rose on him, and he limped on his hip. So here now you see the risen sun rising from having wrestled with the angel of Yah. And he has his new name, Yashrael. And the word Peniel, which he names the place Peniel, Peniel comes from the letters Pe, Nun, Vav, Aleph, Lamed. So that's mouth of the seed secured by Yah's leading. Okay? So this is Jacob's encounter with the man Yeshua, with the Most High Yah, and the angel of Yah. This is really Yeshua's way of saying, don't you know who I am? I literally just told you. But in Hebraic thought, what is done is that a question is posed so that the listener or thinker can find the answer themselves, and then they own it themselves. They work it out themselves. And so this is why he says, why askest thou my name? So family, may Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you shalom, peace. And as usual, you can go to livelightwell.com to shop now to see if you can obtain my calendar. You've got to download it through Dropbox, or a copy of Chaya, Eat, Life, and Fast. The calendar has all of the moeds in it, as well as the dates for them. And I just asked for a donation for that, and then it's of $3 to $7. And then for Chaya, Eat, Life, and Fast, I asked for a donation of $7 for that. And again, you must set up a Dropbox and download it from there. So that's required. So thank you again so much for watching, and I will be continuing this series until I'm done it. And like I said, there could be other things in between, but I will be continuing it so that you can show this series to people who are Christians perhaps, or who are so-called law-keeping Hebrews who do not understand that Yeshua, the volume of the book, is written of him. So thanks again for watching. Shalom. Chaya. Please like, subscribe, and share.